Welcome. Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Parks, Recreation, and Community Service special meeting on Wednesday, August 14th, a little after 2. And why don't we start with the roll call?
Commissioners Khan?
Here.
Oppfogel?
Here.
Sharkey? Here. Sinanian?
Here.
President Ward?
Here. Okay, we have one item on the agenda.
The agenda for the August 14, 2008 special meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall and on the City of Glendale's website on Monday, August 11, 2008 at 4 p.m. Under business agenda, we have item 2A1A, sports field fees for approved community youth sports groups. It's a motion directing staff regarding the proposed sports field fees.
Okay.
I can start. This is Commissioner Ward and members of the Commission. As you know, we brought this to you last month. Nominal fees, what we thought were nominal fees. We thought our staff worked with the various sports groups, the presidents of the various sports groups, but lo and behold, I think some of the folks thought that we hadn't touched base with them. They came to City Council, as you know, in opposition to any type of fees. In essence, this meeting is a public hearing process so that we can hear them out, you as the Commission can hear them out, and either reconsider and send a recommendation back to the City Council. You can reconsider your first action. There are several actions I guess we can take. One is to send a report back to the City Council with an intent to either revoke the fees or not establish any fees, or establish some sort of fee, really up to the City Council at this point. What I'd like to do is I'd like to ask Brittany to at least give you a background on what we did in terms of outreach for this meeting. We did a tremendous amount of outreach, and I want you to know what we did to get as many people here as possible.
Okay.
President Ward, members of the Commission, as George stated, based upon the sentiment that there wasn't enough community outreach for the last meeting, we took the opportunity to do as much community outreach as we could for this particular meeting. We did send an email notification, contacted each of the representatives of the leagues by email, by phone, by mail, if we had their mailing address. We also sent out the same postcard to over 6,000 residents throughout the city, posted notice of the meeting on our city's website, sent press releases 2 weeks ago and also this week out to the various newspapers, and we know of 3 newspapers that have posted our meeting. We also have placed announcement of the meeting at our various public counters, so to all the community centers, the sports complex, and even the brand studios. We also put public notices out at our summer concert series and at our movie series.
Okay. Sounds very good.
We also have recreation staff here deal directly with the leagues, so if there's any questions of the staff, certainly can answer any questions the Commission may have.
Okay. I think we should probably start and just start hearing from the public and the organizations, and then we'll have some discussion and see how it goes. But I'd like to start with the first public speaker, and that's Jordan Harriman. Oh, yes. We're going to allot roughly 4 minutes per speakers, and I'd appreciate it if you would bring new material to the conversation. If it's something that's already been discussed, concur with the previous speakers and then add more information. Thank you.
Well, I'm not sure what has been discussed.
To the first.
Okay, good. My name is Jordan Harriman. I'm a Glendale resident, and I'm a board member of the Jewel City JWV Little League. I have 4 boys that are in the league right now, involved with setting the fees for the league and involved with this particular issue. Jewel City JWV is opposed to this user fee, both on a philosophical ground for the city and on a practical economic ground. Philosophically, we of course believe that the parks are public spaces and should be open to all people, especially the children of the city of Glendale. Baseball is America's pastime. I've been involved in this league for 6 years now with my young children, and what I've learned is that it's not only good for the children, because they make friends, they learn responsibility, they get the thrill of achievement and activity, but it's great for the parents. It really forms a community. The parents become friends with other parents. the city becomes a neighborhood. And when we have our events, it feels like, the best way I can describe it is like Mayberry. It's like a very small town, and when we walk up to the park, we see friends we know, we see people at stores and businesses, and it's just a great way to meet people and cement that bond that makes Glendale a community as opposed to just a place to live. Jewel City JWV doesn't charge all its kids a fee. If the kids can't afford it, we bear that cost. One of the costs we bear is we have what's called a Challenger Division for mentally and physically disabled children. It's a tremendous benefit to the city of Glendale. Those differently abled children get to play games against some of the teams in the league. It's a great way to bond. My children participated for the first time this year. They just really enjoyed the experience. It's just, if we have to charge fees, we wouldn't be able to support that anymore. Glendale, as opposed to some other cities, doesn't support youth leagues. When I say don't support, they don't have their own youth leagues. So in fact, Glendale Little League provides the only youth baseball for the city of Glendale. We don't charge, obviously, the city for that. We provided it a great benefit to the city. We're all volunteers, mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, and we think we do a job that the city couldn't do, certainly at the same cost, which is no cost. Economically, the proposed fee was $4 an hour the first year, moving up to $14. For our league, the first year, that would involve an additional cost of $46.67 a person. By year 4, it would be $163 a person. Our effective fee is $100 a person right now. So next year we'd immediately add almost $50 and then $160 within 4 years. That's $260 we'd be charging if we didn't raise our basic fee. That's simply not sustainable for people to participate. I believe it would, I don't like to sound dire, but I think it would be the death of our league for any meaningful participation. It would only allow basically rich people to participate, and that's not really very fair. We, again, recognize that there is a budget issue with Parks and Rec. We appreciate everything Parks and Rec have done for us. We hope their budget problem can be solved, but we don't think user fees is the way to solve it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I've possibly got a follow-up question before you leave. Your league is kind of lumped in with all the little leagues, but it's the Jewel City Little League. Do you use all of our ball fields, or do you use just a select few for the little leagues?
We use primarily Brand Park and Babe Herman.
Okay.
We also use the sports complex.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Next speaker is Greg Krikorian. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
If you can just bear in mind that we do have a 2-hour limit.
Currently, I think we have enough speaker cards that will stay within that.
Okay, and I also have some emails that were sent that are in your packet that we can...
Okay, and we have some other.
So I get 2 hours to speak?
Yes.
No, 4 minutes.
2 in your case. Well, the timer started on me. First of all, I'm Greg Krikorian. I'm not here as the Board of Education. I want to set the record straight. I'm here as a parent, a father of 5 children, part of Jewel City Little League, and part of AYSO soccer for the past 12 years. And I'm excited we have this opportunity to communicate, because it's important that we communicate and work together. But as Jordan stated earlier, Little League, for you even to entertain the thought. So I watched the last commission meeting. There's a lot of misinformation you were given. First of all, the schools, regarding the school district, we do not charge. We charge them $30 a year for all the fields.
Okay.
Nothing. YMCA goes through us now because the city dropped the program. We charge them nothing. And it costs the school districts tens of thousands of dollars. So there's a lot of information. It's important that the commission understands what's going on. And the important thing here is, like what Jordan said, the families and the community that we bring together at Little League is tremendous. We're doing a big service to all the families in Glendale, getting the kids off the street. How many times do we have kids on MySpace, on internet? We're getting the kids out of the house who can't afford to maybe do other activities, but they're spending the $100 to actually think of levying a tax on the kids and putting a fee on our children to play at Brand Park is a travesty to our city. There's so many other ways we could raise money. We're, as past president of the league in the 90s and in the year 2000s, I work with Dave Ritchie, District 16. There's many Little Leagues here. There's Little Leagues that play at Pacific Park. There's Little Leagues that play at Babe Herman Park. There's Little Leagues that play at Montrose. So we're Jewel City. AYSO is a bigger encompassing of all the fields. But like Jordan said, half the people here I would have never met if I wasn't in these organizations. Our country is so fast with life. Both parents are working. There's single parents. There's grandparents taking kids together, but it slows down life. Why take away the one gem that we have in our city, our fields, and actually entertain the cost that, oh, it's only a nominal fee of $4. It isn't. Staff was telling you, oh, we prepared them. We weren't prepared. If we were prepared, we would have said, hey, let's set a plan and how we're going to address this. We can't handle this. If these fees are levied, you will kill Jewel City Little League. You will. We'll probably be bankrupt in a year or two, and there'll be no Little League, or the city will have to run a program. The other thing that's important here is that we would have more people here. It is a vacation month. A lot of our families know it's vacations, and there's two dads that called me. One had a flat tire and a 110 trying to get here from work, and I know your timing is tough to have these meetings, but it's important we give. I know there's an opportunity. George has been gracious enough to let our family send emails, which I appreciate George's efforts there. And George and the whole staff's done a great job with our parks. But we know we're in a budget crisis. We know we have to do this, but not on the back of the kids. I think this decision would not only hurt Little League, but hurt our community. And with our lives, how busy it is, we're all in different offices doing different things. When I slow down, I go to Brand Park and watch Durness Automotive play Bastain Brothers in baseball or play Kiwanis teams, and it gets everyone together. And when we start telling our kids, we're not like AYSO. We only have 300 kids in our league, and our league has 300. For us to levy these costs would shut these families down. We have so many families have foster kids, and they bring them down, and we spend every weekend going to Brand Park and Babe Herman Park doing the maintenance of these fields. We do it. We do a lot of the maintenance. The dads get together, we roll up our sleeves, and we're raking the fields, helping, buying the chalk, half the stuff we buy out of our own pockets. So there's a lot of facts. I know our time's limited to give you information. So anytime you're invited to our board meetings, you want to come to our board meeting and find out the facts, Georgia's staff is invited to our board meeting. Parks and Rec could come to our board meeting anytime. Sometimes there's presence and there's turnovers with communication. But the key thing I wanted to do is clear the air with the facts. It was stated that we charge a $5 hour fee for the school district. We don't. We charge nothing. It's a nominal fee of $30 to $75 for a year. And it's important that you guys understand the facts before you offer something like this. That's all. I wish I had more time, but I'll
While Mr. Krikorian is up here, we did do some research, and there is a $75 fee when they apply for a permit at the school district. And then anytime field lights are used, they get charged $10 an hour, is what we were told by the school district. Okay. So there's not a, quote, field fee, but anytime there are lights used, the organizations do get charged $10 an hour for lights.
Okay. And during the baseball season, we're in daylight savings time, it's not a big impact.
Well, just a clarification.
And the thing is, there's a lot of things of information to go back and forth.
Yeah, I mean,
and I want to answer your question. You want to...
Yeah, Commissioner.
Yeah, I have a question, Greg.
Go ahead.
You mentioned, as you spoke, that you thought there were so many other ways to raise the money. That's what you said as part of your comments. And I went back and I watched this July 15th City Council hearing. And I think the last thing that was said by the mayor was, come up with some ideas, you guys. Help us out here. Other ways to increase revenues. And you mentioned there are other ways. What are your thoughts on some of these other ways to raise the money?
I appreciate that, Rodney. I think, first of all, I want to set the record straight, and I appreciate the comment. We're not paid staff to come up with ways to help you address your budget. We're volunteers to run a Little League youth program and do things. There's ways that you could use maybe signage at the fields to put ads up in the outfield. I know when I drove to South Pasadena is a Little League that's sponsored by the city. In the outfield on, I think it's Huntington or Mission Street, has all these different signs in the outfield. And if you want to do something like that, there's other ways to do it. But I couldn't sit here, Rodney, and give you ways to increase fees to offset the lights at Babe Herman or at Pelinconi, those things. It's not, it's more that, because even at Brand Park, to be honest with you, and all these guys will attest to it, we're throwing out rubber bases out there, and the kids play baseball in the open field. And I think the biggest challenge you would have is how would you police the situation? There's so many leagues from out of the area running and playing soccer in these fields that we don't even know where they're from. There's a Telemundo League that plays at Brand Park. They come from Pomona, because we always conflict with the baseball fields. So if one league's being paid and the other kids say if they have a pickup soccer game, how are they going to be charged? The whole thing isn't good, even for T-ball and these kids. Rodney, the toughest thing is, I know we're in a tough economy. Maybe there's things that I don't know the whole budget system with the parks, because I haven't investigated it, but I know the situation with Little League and AYSO soccer and our programs, and we're in this community together, because when our kids win, our community wins. It helps the police. It helps get the kids off the street. It helps keeps the kids away from the computer that need it. I mean, you have the kids that they meet their first friends through baseball, their childhood friends, and it's funny because the kids that were on my son's T-ball team in the very beginning in the early 90s graduated this year. And I'm looking at these kids, and it's the most amazing thing.
Sure.
I'm okay. Thanks.
Okay, yeah. One other question. Does your league pay for umpires?
We pay for umpires for certain levels, only the older kids. Younger kids, the dads do the umpiring when they want to not get things thrown at them from other parents when they do a bad call. But majority of the time, the upper divisions, we pay for our umpires, and we pay for that cost. Generally, our cost at the end of the year, because I did the books this year and looked at it, at the end of the year, we ended up with maybe $1,300 left over, and that's still to we got to pay insurance in December for next year, and that's gone. So really, we're awash. We go year to year.
Mm-hmm.
If we did this, it would put a very diverse effect. And we did state the same message to the Parks and Rec staff about a year and a half ago. We told them something like this would hurt our leagues, and then we saw it come up in June, and we were surprised, to be honest.
Does Jewel City also run one of the concession stands?
Not at, we run one at Babe Herman that's just a break-even type of thing.
Okay.
That's all we do. And then what happened was the Parks and Rec put in the vending machines at those locations. There's one at Brand, and there's one at Babe Herman. There's a soda or water machine there that sell.
Another clarification, we didn't put that in, that was a citywide.
City did.
Yeah.
Not Park.
We wouldn't,
George, I
we
apologize.
wouldn't have put it in, Greg.
I
No, not to
apologize.
compete with.
But the city, the same thing. Well, the city
Different
put
market.
vending machines there,
City.
not George. But to be honest, I mean, from Nello and George, we've had a great relationship. He's been an advocate for kids. He's a supporter of baseball, that we know. And we know, we truly understand George and his whole staff has a tough challenge with the budget. But we're saying, now we're all on the same page, don't put it on the kids and the families. We have to try to find something else.
Thank you.
More questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Merriman as well.
I was tasked with trying to find some examples. Raise revenue to answer your question. Again, I'm Jordan Harriman.
Yes, thank
I
you.
contacted other parks departments, one in my home state of Ohio where I grew up, and so far I haven't been very lucky to find out any information. Some groups I contacted did have signage on the outfield walls. One city has a small area of rides where they charge tickets and raise revenue that way. So we did look at that as a league to try to help find ways to raise revenue.
Thank you.
Okay, Jordan, thank you very much for coming back. Okay. Ross Paulson?
Good afternoon. My name is Ross Paulson, and I am an Assistant Regional Commissioner with AYSO here in Glendale. I've been authorized here to present our perspective on the issues of setting fees for use of the parks by the youth groups. Essentially, AYSO is very much against the setting of fees for these public parks. Since the city was incorporated in 1906, the city of Glendale has provided its citizens with free use of the parks for all of these youth leagues, and that's true with regard to baseball, softball, and soccer. The claimed use for this was an across-the-board budget cut, and it was said to be only for. It was said that that is, the city needed to charge these fees so that the fields could be maintained. I think that Council Member Quintero stated it very aptly when he said, basically, when someone in government says that there's no money for something, what they really are saying is that it is not their priority. I think that that is the issue here today. What the board would be saying by imposing a fee would be basically saying that these kids are not the priority that the rest of the community and the city council feels is the priority. I think that the Parks Department needs to reprioritize its spending with regard to other items that are in the budget. The Parks Department has been able to provide free use of fields for 100 years, and I don't think that we should start now charging these youth groups for use of fields. These kids are out there. Some of these kids are playing for free, essentially, because of the fact that they are provided with free entry fee into the leagues. That's true with regard to the baseball organizations and also AYSO. We also have a program with regard to disabled children that's called the VIP program. We do our own sorts of maintenance and provide our own equipment with regard to all of these fields that we're using. For example, we buy our own soccer goals, we buy our own paint striping equipment, we go out and stripe the fields, we go and do a lot of work ourselves. We do all of everybody in the organization is a volunteer. We have 1,000 people who are volunteering. They go out and do the coaching, they do team organization, they are members of the board, they are referees. There's a little bit of a difference with regard to baseball and soccer in that regard. But I would state that that just like a prior speaker stated, the city does not provide its own separate recreation program for soccer and baseball and softball. And what AYSO and other youth groups do is we provide that on a volunteer basis. The benefit is not just in the sense that Mr. Krikorian alluded to, a sense of community, but it's also in a very tangible way. The cost that would be imposed to run a program of that sort would cost quite a bit of money, a lot more than we're talking about here today. I think that also, I have one last point I was going to say, is that I don't think that the proposed fee was really just a response to this one-year budget program, because otherwise it wouldn't have been stated for all of these out years. For example, it's not stated just for a fee for 2008, it's stated as a fee for 2009 and going forward. This is an effort to charge all of these kids for use of the fields, and I don't think that it's proper. I think that we should be creative and come up with other things. I wanted to address one issue or one topic that Commissioner Khan brought up, which was, paying for it. I think I noticed one additional expense that had occurred, for example, was the use of a security guard up at the sports complex. Mm-hmm. That's an additional cost. Well, I can tell you for free on this one that they don't need a security guard for these little kids that have their parents there. The reason that the security guards are there is because there are adult leagues, and there's a potentiality for problems with regard to adults that are playing in those adult leagues. And if the adults are using those fields and there's an issue that requires the cost of a security guard, then perhaps those leagues should be bearing the cost of those kinds of additional expenses.
I believe they are, but I'll let
Just a
George-
clarification, it really wasn't because adult leagues are having problems, it was because of break-ins. People were leaving things on the the chair or the seat of the cars, and they were breaking in. And the cost is borne by the users. You know, we implemented a fee. So really, whether it's children or adults, doesn't matter. It was some crime that was going on there, but that has nothing to do with it.
Yeah, the sports complex is a fee-driven facility. Yes, Commissioner?
Thank you. I have a couple of questions for you. What percentage of your participants are Glendale residents versus non-residents?
The overwhelming percentage are Glendale, La Crescenta residents. I would say in the neighborhood of around 90-95%, somewhere in that vicinity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then do you operate year-round or do you have a season?
We have, I have to explain one thing on that. We have a main season, a major season, which basically runs from August 1 until around the middle of December, later towards December, just before Christmas. That's what we call the regular season. After that regular season is an all-star season, which basically overlaps December, January, and February, and sometimes into early March. From March until approximately early July, there are what are called, there's two different things that are going on then. We have tournament teams that are playing in tournaments that arise out of some of these all-star teams, and there is a spring soccer program that is run.
So basically, you're year-round.
So now we're up to basically year-round these days. It's really something.
But the real push for the field request is that August through December, and then the others, are the numbers as large as that main season?
In the regular season program, we have approximately 3,600 kids playing here, and they run from ages U5, they're before kindergarten, they're preschoolers, all up to U19. My son, who's in the back here, has been playing AYSO since he was this high. You know, he was 4 years old when he started, and now he can't play anymore because he's going off to college now. Thank God.
One other quick question, one last quick question, and then a quick comment. What do you pay in other cities?
What are the charges for other cities?
From other cities for AYSO?
They range. There's a bit of a range there. I would say if you go to some leagues or some cities have a fee that goes down as low as $30, I know of, and there are some that are I will say around $125 per player, I think it is, in like Pasadena, and they have different. They have some additional people that come out and do work out there on their fields. That's probably one of the reasons their charges are a little different. Ours, we have struggled mightily to keep our fees at $80 per player.
No, fees from the city is what.
Oh, I thought you were charging how much we.
Are there other cities that charge AYSO to play on their fields? Is my question. There are. I'm sure there are. I don't know exactly what everybody's doing out there, but I know that that there is variation with regard to what goes on, and I don't know that I could and then
specific about.
Okay, and my quick comment was, you talked about priorities, and we need to look at our priorities. I assure you, if we were cutting out our senior meals, which is a major priority for the Parks and Recreation Department, or some of the other programs that we do around the city, this room would be at least as full. We do look at our priorities, and that was the only comment that I wanted to make.
I certainly am not saying that you aren't, but I'm saying only that this is how I perceive it and how we perceive it. It's a matter of priority.
Thank you. Yes, George.
Again, if I may just clarify, because these are figures we did get from AYSO. AYSO has about 72% of the kids live in Glendale proper. The rest are outside of the area. 931 kids come from outside of Glendale, from Sun Valley, Lakeview Terrace, other areas that don't live in Glendale. So I just want to make sure that we're clear about that. The other leagues, they're about 90%, the baseball, the softball, but AYSO does have registrants that live outside of Glendale. And if I also can clarify, that use all of our fields. AYSO only has 2 fields in La Crescenta, none outside of Glendale. So our fields are really inundated with soccer. And that really is what's causing a lot of the repair work. And as you know,
Wear and tear.
it's not so much baseball or softball that really tears up the field. It's really this use. So I just want to be clear that you all know it's not 90%, it's 72%.
Okay. Commissioner?
Is there a nominal fee you'd be comfortable with? Or is it just...
We don't think it's right on a matter of principle. Certainly if you're asking, I'm not sure what the purpose of the nominal fee would be, but we're not certainly, we're willing to try to help with regard to the issues here. I know that we had a tournament at the sports complex, for example, that was held about a couple of months ago, and we told everybody, go to the snack bar and get water over there, and the sales there were significantly higher as a result. I know that. I'm sorry if I'm answering your question.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Bruce Phillip.
Good afternoon. I've got a short document here that there's 5 copies for the 5.
Thank you.
First, I guess the question is, why is the special session being conducted today? The simple answer is because the city is really desperate to find new sources of revenues due to its inability to fund current salary and benefit contracts with city employees. Salary increases alone last year amounted to over $6 million. The city began its 2009 fiscal year budget deliberations with a $10 million deficit. In its blind vigor to raise revenues, the City Council and City Management has decided to increase all existing fees and permits and surcharges that include organized youth athletic programs in our public parks. When this was finally made known to the leadership of the organization of these youth programs, they quickly recognized that the proposed new fees were staggering and impossible to fund. Several leaders were quoted in a local newspaper recently saying that they would not be able to continue their programs if these costs were actually imposed. Rather than create new fees and increase existing ones, a better approach would be to look at cost savings in the current budget. For several years now, I have thoroughly investigated cost-saving opportunities in the fire department. With the help of retired fire chiefs from the city of Pasadena, Riverside, Alhambra, and San Jose, and there are many others, I discovered that we could safely save up to $15 million a year. A small portion of this cost recovery could easily be transferred into the Parks and Recreations Department so that all organized youth athletic programs could be offered completely free. I will not go into the reasons why organized youth athletic programs are critically important to a community like Glendale. Everyone in the room here, besides city staff, knows very well those reasons, or they wouldn't be here. One example I can tell you of a quick cost recovery of over $700,000 that can be done like that with the stroke of a pen is that each battalion chief in our city have a driver or a chauffeur or an aide. Burbank doesn't have one. Pasadena doesn't have one. Torrance doesn't have one. Riverside doesn't have one. But we have one. The full cost burden of that driver is $200,000 a year. The actual figure is $195,000 if you look at the city figures. Times 3 is near $600,000. They're just drivers. Other fire departments have not certainly seen a need at all to fund those positions. Public safety is more than police and fire. Long-term public safety has to do a lot with investment in our youth. Thank you.
Thank you. Herbert Milano?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Herbert Molano. The last time the City of Glendale conducted a comprehensive study on the needs for youth and how much money was spent on youth by the city was in 2001. I hope that someday soon you'll get a chance to review that document because it highlighted a major disparity that we have in the city. That report established that this city, as a percentage of the total budget, spends only 1% on youth. As a percentage of the general fund, 2.4%. Let that sink in for you for a moment. Because right now you're thinking of resolving what appears to be a zero-sum game within the Parks and Recreation. But if you were to look at the city's budget, starting from 2001 forward, you're going to find that there are two departments that have had the least amount of increases, the Parks Department and libraries. But when you take a look at the other departments, specifically the police and especially the fire department, you're going to find that the increases are growing exponentially. I have the graphs and charts here, if you care for me to actually show them to you today. Here's the problem, that even though we spend, according to that report, 2.4% of our general fund on youth, our youth generally have been shortchanged significantly vis-a-vis what other communities have done. Look, the fact that many residents, perhaps in the surrounding neighborhoods, come to Glendale to use the parks, you also have to think of the number of times that children in Glendale have to go to use the aquatic facilities in Pasadena, or use the aquatic facilities in Burbank, or use the aquatic facilities in Los Angeles. We even had some neighbors from up north tell us, you know, if you don't have sufficient facilities, why don't you go to Griffith Park? Right here, it was said to us. The point is that the city has shortchanged our youth for a very, very long time. And it is precisely the thing that we must do the most to provide the after-school programs, and there are no better programs than to get kids involved in youth. But I have a little document for me to show you. This is the major salary increases in only 1 year from 2007 to 2006 to 2007. And I have about 50 employees only. Here's a couple of them. This gentleman, Mr. Doyle, has increased from 2006 to 2007. Gross salary increase, $57,000. Here's another gentleman, Mr. Galindo, $52,000 increase. And I can go $57,000 for Mr. Lorenz. Here's another gentleman, $44,000. All in all, $1,282,000 in salary increases to these 50 people. I'd care to submit that for you to have that. I only have one document. The problem is not within the Parks Department. The problem is who actually guides and rules what happens to the general fund of the City of Glendale. In 2001, there was an organization created, the Glendale Management Association, of which Mr. David Ahern was president. And ever since that organization got established, we've had a significant increase in payroll and benefits that is beyond anything you've seen unless you take a look at the documents. We're trying to squeeze from one program to another, from seniors to youth. You don't need to do that. You need to take a look at the city's budget and a good qualitative analysis of what has transpired since 2001. I have the documents available. I have it in electronic form. I gladly present them to you. This city should not, by any means, shortchange our youth and continue its ways with regard to how it compensates many of its senior management staff with increasingly what I would call unjustifiable benefits in gross pay and overtime abuse. Thank you.
Thank you. Dave Ritchie.
Good afternoon. I'm Dave Ritchie. I'm the district administrator for California District 16 Little League. And my district encompasses La Cañada, La Crescenta, Sunland Tujunga area, Burbank, and Glendale. The bulk of my leagues are based here in Glendale. Glendale is the oldest Little League charter in California. And our field, Babe Herman Field, is the oldest dedicated Little League facility in California. And we're quite proud of it. And Little League built the original field. The land was given to us to use by the city of Glendale, and we built the original facility, including the building that still exists there, our snack bar and press box. The actual field and the lights and fencing and all that stuff obviously has been redone over the years, several times actually, by Parks and Recreation. We've had a partnership with the City of Glendale and Parks and Recreation for 50 years, more than 50 years, since 1951. And we've enjoyed that, and I have to say that I appreciate everything that Parks and Rec has done for us, which is a lot, including especially with the staff that we work with on a almost daily basis. So I understand the problems that Parks and Rec has in terms of their payrolls and expenses, and because I see it and I talk to people and I'll call up and say we need this taken care of, we need a mound shaved or whatever, and sometimes there's just not the manpower to do it. So we understand that, but as some of my other colleagues have told you, it would be devastating for us to have to charge those kind of fees. We would lose a lot of people, especially the way things are right now in this country. I do have a few ideas that I'm willing to throw out that could help the situation. I know signage has come up, but I look at signage and I can understand where unless it was very regulated, that it could become an eyesore and not, our parks wouldn't have the aesthetic appeal that they have now. But that's not to say that we couldn't do something like that. I don't think it really raises a lot of money. But there used to be a Tim Herman tournament here in Glendale, and the money went back into the youth organizations, and I think between us and CSA and Babe Ruth, which are the other baseball organizations that use the city fields, that maybe we could host a tournament maybe in that same time slot that we could use to raise monies to help with the maintenance of the facilities. Also, I know that the city has grant writers, or at least a grant writer, that has contacted me in the past because there was an interest in using us as an applicant to fund the building of a challenger or handicap baseball facility here in the city. So that might be an avenue that we might want to look at, where we could use the youth organizations as applicants to go out and find some money for some of the projects that we need to have.
Very good. Yes, George?
And I know Scott may not like this. If you wouldn't mind if I make a statement, I really want to thank Mr. Ritchie, because it was intimated that my staff, well, we don't care about the kids. Honestly, we have some very hard-working kids that do work with the youth groups. We go bend over backwards to try to get them fields, try to work on the fields. And just to get that acknowledgement is nice. Thank you, Mr. Ritchie. So I just want to let the people watching know this is a very caring group of staff, and to intimate that they don't care about kids is not right by other speakers. I know Mr. Krikorian said that we work hard with him, and thank you, Greg. I think our staff does. Yeah, and Mr. Merriman, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, that's the sentiment of the commission. We'll get into that after the speakers. Thank you very much. Devin Lucas.
Hi, my name is Devin Lucas. I'm with the California Softball Association, and early last year, I was renting about 7 or 8 times on a Saturday, adult sports, softball tournaments. And it seemed like it was generating revenue for the city, and everything was going great. And I got a letter saying that my rental fees went from $30 an hour to $60 an hour. And that pretty much, kicked me right out of the ballpark. And I know that, like Big League Dreams, they charge only $50 an hour. And I was just wondering, why would it be like double the amount and priced way out of any competition? I know that a lot of other cities, like Santa Clarita, I rent from Santa Clarita at $31 an hour, and a lot of parks are all-day use, $250. The reason I'm bringing this up in a youth sports context is that I thought maybe that adult sports, I know that youth sports trumps adult sports a lot, but I was wondering if it was generating revenue for the city, then why would you price me right out of the range of other cities that are, charging only $25, $30 an hour? And also you can use the snack bar as a way to generate revenue. So I know that, youth sports trumps a lot of adult sports programs, and I was just running on Saturdays, but all of a sudden, like I said, I was doubled on the price of the rental of the fields. So I was hoping that maybe I can talk to somebody about maybe reducing that rate, in the future. Like I said, it was generating revenue. I'm not sure if the revenue that was generating, that I was giving as far as fees was going to youth sports or the city or where that money was going to, but it would seem like, that'd be one way to create funds for youth sports. That's what I was in Diamond Bar, by the way, for an example. I was running softball tournaments on Saturdays, and I would, all the monies that were generated from the fees from the teams would go right to AYSO. So they had a pretty good thing going on over there, and I was wondering maybe you could do the same thing here.
Your leagues, they predominantly play at the Sports Center up off of Fern?
I play everywhere. I play Quakes and Ranch Cucamonga. I play Santa Clarita, Simi Valley.
No,
I was playing, predominantly,
Glendale.
I was playing at the Glendale Sports Complex, as well as some of the smaller fields, which weren't as costly as the one at the complex. And about 60% of the residents, or 60% of the participants for that were Glendale residents, since I was passing out flyers during the week at the leagues. So it seemed like I was providing something for the residents here on Saturdays. And like I said, it was like a punch to the stomach here. I saw that rental sheet, and it went right from $30 an hour to $60 an hour for the rental, and that priced me right out of the ballpark. So.
Okay, I think someone from staff.
Yeah, we can ask Gabrielle to come up and speak about that. I know youth does trump. I mean, we've been trying to create space for youth, but this is the sports complex, and maybe Gabrielle can talk about what the issue is.
Speak with her.
Yeah.
Get a business card or something.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Discuss it afterwards.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Smiley?
Good day. Thank you for having us here today. It's obvious that everyone is trying to push in the same direction, and I regret that sometimes the way it's set up, it might be a little adversarial where you feel like people aren't appreciative, but I know that everybody is appreciative to be heard and to try to solve this. I think we all have our memories of youth sports and some positive things that happened. And I represent Crescenta Sports Association here in La Crescenta, and we run a league where there's fall, there's spring, there's summer. We have both boys and girls. We have about 750 to 1,000 kids that we serve each year. 85% plus are from the community. It's really a positive situation. Personally, my father was a CSA coach when I was a kid, and he still goes to the games, and now to be able to still be in that community, I think we really have something special here. And it would really alarm me if we were unable to continue to provide this for our community. I know that if we continued with this tiered system that is proposed, it would put Crescenta Sports Association out of business, and this is very troubling. A couple of other things that I find a little bit alarming today, the implication that we didn't have a great crowd here, or that if it were another group we'd have more people. Both of my sons wanted to go. My father's retired. He's babysitting the kids today. He'd want to come out. Our board unanimously voted to come out to this today, and we're not unanimous about a whole lot. But we were unanimous about coming out today, and they asked Mike Padula, the president of CSA, and me as the president of baseball, to come out and kind of represent. So I'm certain perhaps the number of bodies in here isn't representative of the community's feel for this. Second thing that's a little bit odd, I find, is that you would ask the community and organizational volunteers like all of us to find a way to fix the budget woes. That's a little bit confusing because I'm pretty sure that we're not privy to all the different information, and we wouldn't even be armed as to how to begin. So that's a little bit different. I'm a teacher at Crescenta Valley High School, and I can't wait to go to school every day. Sometimes the summer or the weekends are too long. It's a great job. What I get concerned about with the fee structure is that maybe we haven't looked with great foresight to see what a fee would do. If we were to fast forward ahead and to kill off these programs because of a fee, what impact would that have on our community? I would be very frightened. The number one commonality that I see of troubled kids in my classroom are kids who aren't connected, kids who don't have a place to belong. And our schools and communities provide that place and help ensure that our community is right. We live in a great place, and it's because of the schools. It's because of people like you guys who care. It's because of the volunteers in our community. I am greatly shaken by the idea of excluding people from that kind of a life, and I'm concerned about the social and financial impact of that along the way if we were to continue with these cuts. Thank you for listening today.
All right, thank you very much. Joseph Boki.
Commissioners, thank you. My name is Joseph Boki, and I am the president-elect of Crescenta Valley Little League. We use primarily Montrose and Glorieta parks, the sports complex, and a few other parks around in Glendale and throughout. I will not echo, or I will echo, with a very brief statement, everything that everyone else has said. I like the idea of focusing on a result or focusing on something that we can do to move forward. We do recognize that the city and Parks and Rec are in a budget crisis, and we want to do our part to help out. But as others have said, the fees as they're proposed now, in the short term, will put us out of business, and over the long term, will make it almost impossible for any other organizations to come in and continue to do the good work that all of us do. We talked about signage. We talked about this with our board of directors. We've actually advocated putting signage up at Montrose Park several times to the commission, I believe. One of the things that we talked about after the last city council meeting, or after the city council meeting where this was discussed, was a partnership with Parks and Rec where we would be responsible, the leagues themselves would be responsible for going out and getting the signage. We would split the revenue of that signage with Parks and Rec. Obviously, there has to be some guidelines, and there are certain kinds of businesses which we don't encourage to be sponsors of our leagues, and we wouldn't want those signs to be on the outfield walls of our parks either. One of the other things that comes up oftentimes is the volunteer service aspect of things. In past years, and I have to preface this by saying I've only been in Glendale for about 5 years. We moved from Pennsylvania. My son has played in both CSA and in Little League. My daughter plays Little League and is also in AYSO. But all the things that people said about meeting new people and becoming connected with the community are very true. But I've also been told that in the past there was a quid pro quo nature to some of the volunteer service that was done by the leagues on behalf of Parks and Rec in maintaining the fields. Our league in particular, and I believe most of the leagues that are represented here, would be very happy to take over a significant amount of the maintenance of these fields. In some cases, we're already doing some. Up at Montrose Park, we actually mow close to the fence that we had installed so that people would stop turfing the park and things like that. And we'd be happy to help and do considerably more than that, and as a way to do that. Dave Ritchie mentioned the opportunity to perhaps look for grants or other fundraising opportunities on a broader scale to help enhance the parks. This is what I do professionally, and so that's something that I would be also very interested in. And the whole concept of sponsoring tournaments, city-sponsored tournaments, whether they are adult softball tournaments or youth baseball tournaments or soccer tournaments, that would then generate revenue that would go back into the Parks and Rec Department, is something that we would certainly be very interested in. Our kids, and as an adult, I'm also a consumer of the sports complex because I play softball up there every Friday. Our kids would be happy to have another venue to play. My son, who played Little League, he was on our All-Star team and played up through the end of July, said to me after we lost our last game said, well, now I get to have a normal summer. A week later, he was like, Dad, when's baseball start again? When's baseball start again? It's time for me to go. I need to be playing. So he had his normal 1 week off for summer vacation and then was hot to trot to play baseball again. And the opportunity over the summer, in particular, late summer, early fall, to play in another tournament would, where we would actually be paying to play in that tournament, would be sponsored by the city, is something that we would be very interested in as a family, and I believe many of the families that I represent in our league would also be interested in. Other than that, that's all I have.
Thank you. David Duque?
Close enough.
Dubuque?
I like that one.
Okay. Only butchered one so far.
That's all right. David Dubuque?
Dubuque.
Yeah, that
Way
French
off.
stuff. You got to get that. Dubuque, though, is my nom de plume. I'm with the Glendale Lacrosse Center Babe Ruth. Been with them since 1991. Have been involved as a board member with Little League. Homeowner here since 1980. I'm basically not going to give you any new information except that Glendale Babe Ruth is probably the smallest baseball group out of all the sports here. We've been in a situation where we used to have 17 teams 10 years ago. We're down to 6. Part of it is cost. We used to have a set of equipment bags for each team. Now we're down to 2 because we have 2 teams playing on each field. So if we have a doubleheader, the second team is coming in. They use the same equipment. I'm not here to give you a long speech. I think the fees would kill us. There's been a point where CSA has had to bail us out before. Ralph Tapia, who is the president, he hasn't been a board member as long as I have, but he's bailed us out financially out of his own pocket. I think the fees are going to kill us. And I don't know what to tell you about promoting more money or sponsorship money, but I think there's some good people here that could probably give you some ideas one-on-one. And I have to tell you, I do agree that sports complex, way before George was here, the sporting group has been helpful all the way back to John McKay. I couldn't say enough about how good they treat us. Kim Ernst and I are friends from way back. She's been the right-hand person to a lot of groups because she's probably been here the longest that I can remember. I know Mr. Morello has been here forever. I know he's struggling all the time, but I just want to say I think fees would probably put us out of business. So, thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Well put.
Currently, I don't have any more speaker cards, and I think what we, as a commission, okay, we have one. What we'd like to do is afterwards is have an open discussion, please, and then we'll go from there. Okay. Bruce Perry, please.
Bruce Perry. I live here in Glendale all of my life. My kids went through the system about 25 years ago. Back in the days when Babe Herman Field was named Babe Herman, a lot of you people don't know who Babe Herman was, and the kids don't even really remember who Babe Herman was, but he was a ball player. George touched on one thing. Back in those days, the coaches did take care of the baseball fields, and we didn't have soccer, and that is an extra cost. I understand now. So I have no idea what to do. I'm not quite sure. I got this mailer in the mail, so I'm not quite sure what the fees are. If somebody could just touch on what the fees are and how they're going to be collected for the television audience, maybe improve things a little bit. But anyway, you're all doing a good job, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Bruce.
Just the proposed fee was $4 an hour for field use for the first year, and then that would have been ramped up, I think, to $6 the second year and $8 the next year.
Per team or per boy or
For the whole hour.
For
So
the teams.
so you divide that by 2 teams, so it would have been $2 an hour per team.
And I believe also that is the only fee that would be implemented. Right now, we do not have a fee for any of the fields, and also this would take effect, someone said 2008, it actually was for 2009.
Right, for those who had their permits like AYSO, it wouldn't have been until next year.
how would that be collected? Beginning of the league?
Right. Yeah. It would be collected by the sports team over here, and they, in the beginning of when you pull your permits and the hours that you request, that would be collected then. But again, no fees for lights or anything like that. Again, it was the proposed fee. It's not a fee at this point.
Okay, I'd like to, we are going to run out of time, so let's...
I'll be very quick.
Okay, one more speaker, please. Let me
Sorry
have the
about
card.
that. My name is Sean Rodriguez. I'm the president of the Foothill League, based here in Glendale. And I agree with everything that's been said here. The one thing I would say is, when we talk about a fee of just $4 an hour, that translates to our league to about $20,000 next year. That's a lot of money out of the pockets of 250 families. Now, in 2013, that goes to about 50,000. Well, our budget is about 20,000 a year. Maybe we collect about 20 to 25,000 to run the league for uniforms, to pay the insurances and the fees and whatnot. So to add another 50,000 in 5 years, that's a lot of money out of our pockets, I think. And so when we talk about it as I think, as little as, well, it's only $4 an hour. It's not $4 an hour. It's $20,000 for the season, which comes out of the pockets, which I don't think any of the leagues here can really afford to pay. So that's all I really have to say. But I didn't want that to be taken lightly, as it's just $4 or $5. That comes out to be a lot of money.
Is Foothill League a softball league?
We have baseball and softball.
Okay.
We have 250 families, 300 kids, 25 teams, and probably about 60 to 75 volunteers.
And your season is?
Our season runs February 1st through July, and we play fall ball as well. Thank you very much.
So you don't get charged for the fall ball either?
Thank you.
We charge our children for the fall ball.
But do you pay for the fields? Okay, you do.
We do, but it's through Crescenta Valley, so they host the league during the fall.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to kind of start the discussion a little bit by just letting everybody know that this commission's pretty much on your side. I mean, we're here for the youth, we're here for Glendale, and we're not here to impose fees. We're not here for full cost recovery, because that would be a lot more than $4. I think one of the things you have to look at is, everybody says the parks are public, they're open for the public. But you realize when you pull a permit and you are exclusively allocating those fields for your use, that means that if I was having a picnic and had my cousins and brothers there, and I wanted to go play on the softball field, a park ranger would come and escort me off and say, I'm sorry, this Little League has a permit to use this field. And for that exclusivity, it's nice for you to have some type of a record that you have that. And if you look at all the hours and the stuff that all these leagues use, these facilities are being used by the youth of Glendale and other cities pretty much exclusively. I mean, the fields are not there for the public all the time to walk up and use, because they're being by leagues. There's also facilities, lighting at night. There's facilities that you operate, the snack stands. There's utility costs and other costs, but the revenue from those snack stands goes directly into the leagues. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that we look at as a commission, but I think that as a commission, we weren't here, nor did the action we thought we were taking the other month, trying to do cost recovery. It's more of accountability to secure your rights for these fields for the future. There's a long history at the City of Glendale with these leagues, but there's no real document besides a paper permit. And it may be worth it for some type of security. There is other leagues out there. There's groups that are maybe not represented in this community that may challenge this city and politically try to get access into these facilities and try to bump somebody who is, they're dwindling in their numbers, or their groups aren't playing as well. So I think that, trying to secure the rights to use these facilities for the outreach that you do is fantastic. And it would be nice to formalize it and make sure that it's going to stand. And I think that possibly could be something with a nominal fee, whether or not it's $1 or anything. So I just think that we're here to listen. I'm glad you came out and presented. I understand you could fill the audience if you needed to with, youth and kids. But I'm glad that the management of the organizations did come, and we were listening. So I'd like to open it up for discussion on the commission.
To start off with, I played youth sports for many, many years in all the different sports. And I would say that it played a very important role in my life. So to discourage any child from participating is a major issue that I have. There was a comment made about something along the lines of where our priorities are. And I think it's important to focus on a few of these issues. I heard what the chairman said about a nominal fee. I heard what the speakers had to say as well. I guess looking at this, and I didn't hear any speakers talk about increasing the fees as a good thing. And in fact, quite the opposite. When we last heard this last month, the beginning of the month, you guys weren't in the audience. There had been some discussion, and I didn't really understand some of the comments, but I did understand what took place. But there was some dialogue between the city staff and between different organizations. Maybe not every single organization, but some of the organizations. And I think there was some communication breakdown, and it's not just on the staff to say they didn't communicate with the groups. I think sometimes even within the organizations there's breakdowns of communication. Now, having said that, I also watched this July 15th City Council meeting, and I saw where George made his presentation. I think some of you also spoke at that. And I listened very clearly to what the council members each said on this item. And one of the reasons I asked Greg about what ideas in terms of increasing revenues was because that was specifically what the mayor said as his last comment. And I liked the fact that some of you came with some ideas. I think the ways to raise money, if it's signage in the fields, I think that's a good thing. Some of the tournaments, whether it's a grant writer, maintenance of the fields, however it is, I think, as the chairman stated, we're trying to make this thing happen. How do we make this happen? I mean, I don't think anyone looks at this and says, we want to tax our youth, which is what is being said. I think that's totally incorrect. I think what we're trying to do is establish that there are programs that our youth can use and that we're able to maintain those fields for those programs. I personally, as it relates to this matter, I don't feel that the increase in fee that we would be getting as a result of this proposal is worth the angst or the issues or what is happening in this community as a result of this, or from discouraging our youth from playing sports. It's just not worth it. If I balance this out, it's not worth it to me. I would rather say, you know what, these are my thoughts. Maybe in the future we revisit this, whether it's because the economy is good or the economy is bad. Maybe now is not that time. Maybe in the future we have more dialogue, we look at this in a different light. But for me as a commissioner, I'm not comfortable at all recommending any type of increase in fee. And my suggestion or recommendation would be to send this recommendation or send this to the City Council saying that at least this commissioner feels that no increases of fees should be proposed at this time.
Ronnie, thank you.
I did some homework on other ways. Here, let me give you. I looked up maybe some other ideas of how we might raise some funds here, alternate proposals for revenue. Some of it I don't, what it does is kind of a catalyst to get other ideas going, and I did like some of the things mentioned here. But the first, and I've backed it up with some things from the Glendale Police Foundation, is creation of a Glendale Park Support Foundation like the Glendale Police Foundation, the Glendale College Foundation, and the Glendale Rose Float Association. So all those organizations, so it would be nice if that could be something looked into. We've mentioned a couple of times about banners, and someone mentioned that banners might be an eyesore and costly. I noticed La Cañada will have one banner and then have all the businesses listed on the one banner. So that really kind of would be one way to do it. There was, I read in the Parks and Rec magazine where this Brian Albright, he's the Assistant Director, County of San Diego, Parks and Recreation, and he said, we asked for corporate sponsors to fund one or more events, and the response was overwhelming. So that was kind of a nice treat. The other thing, when we go to Florida, we go on the trails there and taking hikes, and they have a lot of benches. They have just maybe just one wood bench, and then the other is, the memorial, and it's all along the trails, and they're really nice. And I called Descanso Gardens because they have them there, and I asked, what do you ask for a donation? And what is the cost of a bench? You probably know better what benches cost than she said over $1,000. I didn't know what, but they're just the small benches under the oaks. They asked for a donation. They spent they told me on benches a little over $1,000, and they asked for those for $4,000 donation. And then the park benches themselves for Descanso Garden, a donation is $15,000. So I thought that was another way of looking. I also put some backup material here too, and on benches. And then this one was really, this one was really different. They had a new executive director in Champaign County, Illinois. And he went into the maintenance yard and he saw this old truck, and about 10-year-old truck, and they paid $2,500 for it. And he thought, well, what are we doing with this? Maybe we can sell it. And they sold it for $1,300. So then he came up with this other idea of an auction on eBay. And he had to check with the attorney first. The attorney okayed it. Even auctions in town, and in the past 15 months, their eBay sales exceeded $70,000. And they went with the service. And I thought, and then they even sold some bricks. And so I thought, we have all these rocks at Dugmatian. And
It's your name engraved on it, huh?
wouldn't you love a rock from Dugmatian? And also, we have all these hospital beds from Rockhaven. And so we might have some things that, he said, his quote was, almost everything has value to someone. And so anyway, I thought those were some ideas that might get us going with in a direction of getting some money. And then the last thing, I have to commend staff. They are so proud of our parks, and they're so enthusiastic. And they see how important the maintenance is and keeping the parks the way they are. So I commend them with the idea of user fees, because we're all in this economic downturn together. And so many cities and states are doing it with fees, so we were not unique in looking for a way. And just for my last quote, this is some National Recreation Parks Association, the senior director before the Congressional Committee, and he said, we believe the public generally supports such fee charges if they are reasonable, understood as providing special access for special users, and that a portion of the fees goes back to public lands. And so, but anyway, I feel that maybe we can look at other ways and maybe not have fees right now and put it off for a year and see how we do with maybe some other ideas, and then bring it back, see where we are with the economy in 2009, and hopefully things will turn around and be better. Anyway, thanks.
Hey, Dottie, thank you very much. Commissioners?
I want to thank everyone who came and spoke today. It's very important for us to hear you and really get a global idea of where things are and make an educated decision on this issue. Last meeting, I think all of us made a decision based on the information that we knew at the time, and there can be no doubt about the fact that the youth is a priority for us, and the parks are a priority, obviously, and they're a priority not only for the commissioners, they're a priority for the department. I don't doubt that for 1 second. I'm a father of 2 children myself. I don't want to take any part in creating an environment in this city where my children will be will find it difficult to engage in group sports or using our fields, using our parks. But at the same time, I want to commend our department for doing a great job. They're obviously under a lot of financial stress. They're operating on shoestring budget. They're under a lot of pressure to find solutions to budgetary problems. And I don't think increasing the fees for the parks or creating fees for the parks is the solution to those problems. And I think I agree with my fellow commissioners that the increased recommendation should be reversed. This should go back to the city. The burden of this issue should be on the city of Glendale, not specifically on the Parks Department, and certainly not on our youth, not on the leagues that provide such a valuable service to all of us. So with that, I'll conclude my comments. Just want to thank everyone for coming.
Thank you. Commissioner?
First of all, I want to comment about my question about priorities. I wasn't suggesting in any way, shape, or form that there weren't enough of you in this room. That was not the reason for my comment. And just to, one of the speakers talked about the memories that we had of youth sports. My personal memory is always being picked last. But at least I was picked, and that experience doesn't diminish my support of the parks and the sports and all of the youth groups. I think, as Mr. Krikorian said, or one of the other speakers said, these kinds of projects really are a public safety issue, because it does give the youth of the city something else to do rather than getting in trouble. And one of the things that I found most enlightening, and I actually didn't expect to find this from the part of the information that we got from the city, is that 3 of the organizations that are on this list have 90 to 95% Glendale residents, and only and the other 3 were in the 2 of them were in the 70s and 1 was in the 60s. But the important thing is that these are things that the youth of the community can use, and I think that we need to look real close at this. I'm not sure that fees at this time are really the way to go, but I think that that's something that we need to keep on the table. And it's really great to see this many people at a commission meeting, and I think we'd all welcome you coming back more often. The one question that I have for George or Brittany is, as these are per hour fees, are there organizations that are reserving fields where maybe we have to turn the lights on for the fields or maybe not, and then they haven't scheduled the fields, and then we end up with lights on and people not using them? And I think that we need to have some sort of the department needs to look into having some sort of a cancellation policy, and then if they don't cancel, because we don't want to have lights on in fields that aren't being used, because the residents around those fields don't want them on, but it's a waste of energy, and we don't want to do that. So we need to look at something for organizations that reserve fields, require us to do things to those fields, and then don't use them.
Commissioner Rottfogel, we have had situations where an organization may have permitted the use of a field, and then staff members have gotten a phone call from a member of the public, a resident, saying, hey, I just drove by a field, or I live across the street from a field, the lights are on, nobody's on it, and we have had to send staff members out to go turn off the lights. So that situation has arisen.
Thank you. And in your suggestion to everybody else that spoke, I will echo what everybody else said, and let's move on.
Okay. I think it's a real honor for us to be on a Parks and Recreation Commission, because, we're here for the parks, for the city, and for the good that this department really does, which is reaching out to youth and seniors and everybody within the city to enjoy these parks and these wonderful lands that we have, and the jewels of Glendale or these park systems. So really proud to be here, and I think that there's a lot of great recommendations coming out. Maybe we should, as a commission, make a recommendation to our city council to consider a 501(c) foundation or something that, in cooperations with these youth groups and these organizations, to be able to do private-public partnerships and raise some funds and be able to support these youth facilities instead of direct fees to the youth or to the organizations, but really kind of build a third-party foundation that looks after the youth fields and make sure that they're there for perpetuity and other youth and the kids to come. So I think there's a lot out there, and as a group, I don't know if we're going to take an action or a recommendation to the city council, but does any commissioner have a motion they'd like to forward so that we can send to the city council?
The motion is in the form in the staff report.
Got it in here.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the members of the commission, I've provided you with a motion that's drafted in the alternative. Given what I've heard, you're probably looking at something more along the lines of the second alternative, which is to provide city council feedback received from the public and as stated by the commissioners at this meeting. First alternative was essentially a notice of intention to adopt fees. I'm certainly not hearing that.
I don't believe that's our intention.
As a majority, so perhaps you might want to entertain the second portion of that motion as your motion. And although not specifically part of the motion, I think part of the report that will go back, Mr. Chapchin can correct me if I'm wrong, would include language that the majority of the commission is not in favor of adopting fees at this time.
Right.
That's correct.
Okay. I'll second it. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay.
He said...
Okay, can we have a roll call on
it.
Commissioners Khan,
Yes.
Rockfogle,
Yes.
Sharkey,
Yes.
Sinanian,
Yes.
President Ward.
Yes, I agree. I thank everybody for attending this meeting, and sorry you weren't at the one a month ago, but, we did listen, and thank you very much. Any other agenda items? I will call the meeting concluded.
Sorry, there is item, hate to be a stickler for process,
Please.
I apologize. But now that I'm here, on your agenda, you do have commissioner staff comments. I don't know if there are any.
I'm sorry.
Is commissioner staff comments?
Are there staff comments?
Well, I would just say a couple of things in terms of the suggestions. We have been looking at a lot of revenue sources, and we are working with the California Community Foundation for additional funding and for some of our parks. The suggestion of actually auctioning things off, that's done by the purchasing department, really not under our control. So we are looking at a number of things, including corporate sponsorships. For our events, we do get corporate sponsorships. So it's not like that staff isn't. We're always looking at ways of doing this. And just kind of a comment on priorities. With the youth is our priority. And we've actually moved adults off so that we can move soccer on to fields. So when AYSO gets up here and says, what's their priority, we really actually prioritize them over adult soccer, much to the detriment of revenue. So I just want to be clear about that, so that when they take it back, they understand that we all care for the kids. I'm a parent. Everybody here cares for the kids. So we're all working together. It's just my comment.
Yeah, and we do want to provide the safest, healthy growing fields we can, and they do take a lot of input from the department to keep them in that condition for the safety of the youth and great sport fields. I know got a good team out there that works on it. Okay, any other things following agenda comments?
I'm sorry. When you report back to council, I really like the idea of some sort of a community foundation, Parks and Rec. I think that's something that we should look into. I'm involved in a couple of those, and I think that with the wonderful people that we have here in the audience and in the community, I think that would be something that would really work.
Right, and Mark Sturtevant is working with the California Community Foundation, and he's pretty good. We'll establish one.
Very good.
For volunteers.
For Parks and Rec. Great.
Okay. All right. Any other comments at this time? Okay, I will conclude the meeting then roughly at 3:28.
Move to adjourn, he
Move
says.
to adjourn. All in favor? Okay, we're adjourned.